Presidential elections in the USA. In November, the U.S. presidential election will take place. Who will win? Will the assassination attempt on Donald Trump be of any benefit to him? Instead of President Joe Biden, Kamala Harris is now in the race. Will Kamala Harris be able to give Donald Trump a tough time? Who is Kamala Harris, and why did President Joe Biden leave the election race? Why are Russia and China in favor of Donald Trump's victory, and what do they stand to gain from it? During the election, there was a conflict between President Joe Biden and Donald Trump. The popularity of Donald Trump was increasing day by day, which was becoming a threat to President Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. This led to an incident that increased Donald Trump's popularity. The assassination attempt on Donald Trump turned out to be very beneficial for him and his party. Fortunately, Donald Trump survived the attack, but he took full advantage of the situation. Donald Trump's supporters and many others began to say that God had saved Donald Trump, and they believed that he was spared to win the election this time. Donald Trump himself began claiming that he was saved by God to save America, and his fans and supporters, who idolize him, echoed this sentiment. When Donald Trump came to address a rally after the assassination attempt for the first time, with a bandage on his ear, his fans also put bandages on their ears. They claimed that it was now Donald Trump's right to win the election and become the President of the United States. However, in a recent survey, it was found that there was no significant increase in Donald Trump's popularity. Why was this the case? The main reason was that initially Donald Trump's competition was with Joe Biden, whose popularity was waning day by day. After the assassination attempt, it was expected that Donald Trump's popularity would surge. However, an incident occurred that prevented this increase. The reason was that President Joe Biden announced he was no longer running in the presidential elections. Instead, Kamala Harris would participate in the election. Why did President Joe Biden leave the election, and who is Kamala Harris? Donald Trump often mocked President Joe Biden's age and constantly targeted his deteriorating condition. Even his own party, the Democratic Party, believed that President Joe Biden should not participate in the elections. However, President Joe Biden was convinced that he was absolutely right and that he would definitely take part in the elections. In the end, President Joe Biden decided not to participate in the upcoming elections and nominated Kamala Harris in his place. Kamala Harris is currently the Vice President of the United States. Let me give you a brief introduction to her. Her father was from Jamaica, and her mother was from the Tamil region of South India. Kamala Harris started her career as an attorney, and later served as Attorney General in California. Afterward, she became the Vice President and was also the first female Vice President in America. Now she is running for the presidential election in America. She is the first Black American and South Asian woman to be nominated for the presidential election. As I mentioned earlier, Kamala Harris began her career as an attorney and then served as Attorney General in California. During her tenure, she handed down severe punishments to many criminals, including those who violated women's rights and committed fraud against them. Donald Trump, who is currently involved in many legal cases, will likely face the same tough approach from Kamala Harris. In her first rally, Kamala Harris stated that she knows how to handle people like Donald Trump. Donald Trump, whose popularity was increasing, was 6% ahead of President Joe Biden, but now his popularity is decreasing, and Kamala Harris is ahead of him. In fact, Kamala Harris has significantly increased her party's support among Black voters and women voters, and it appears that Muslim voters may also support her. Kamala Harris's stance on Gaza differs somewhat from President Joe Biden's. When Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu visited the United States, Kamala Harris spoke about the cruelty and barbarity in Gaza during her speech. Now, things are becoming more difficult for Donald Trump. He had expected that the momentum from the assassination attempt would carry him through to November 5th and help him win the election. But that did not happen. His support is decreasing day by day. Donald Trump is now facing the same difficulties that President Joe Biden did. The criticism Donald Trump directed at President Joe Biden regarding his age is now being turned against him. President Joe Biden is 81 years old, while Donald Trump is 78. The difference is not significant, but Donald Trump took full advantage of it. However, after President Joe Biden's withdrawal and Kamala Harris's nomination, Donald Trump's challenges have increased. Now, Donald Trump is the oldest candidate in the election, while Kamala Harris is 69 years old, creating a 19-year age difference between them. Russia and China favor Donald Trump becoming president. What will they gain from it? As discussed in our previous video on the Russia-Ukraine war, the United States has been aiding Ukraine against Russia. Donald Trump has often stated that the United States should not support Ukraine. He knows that if America withdraws its support, Russia could easily take over Ukraine. China also stands to benefit from Donald Trump's presidency. Chinese leaders have expressed that they find it easier to deal with Donald Trump. After Kamala Harris's nomination, Donald Trump's popularity has decreased, and she raised a record-breaking amount of funds within the first 24 hours of her candidacy. The first debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is scheduled for September 10th, but tensions are already high. Donald Trump has accused the media of bias, while Kamala Harris insists that both candidates' microphones remain on during the debate so that the truth about Donald Trump can be revealed to the public. We now have to wait and see what will happen in the upcoming election and who will play a significant role in the race on November 5th. Who will be America's next president?